Welcome to a new guitar repair restoration video out of my luthier workshop. Look at this amazing mid-60s Fender Jazzmaster guitar. A friend of mine asked me to take care about it, and actually every fret was loose. And the bow nut was totally out of center, and the string alignment was, I would call it, not so perfect, and also the neck was glued into the body. So I have to remove the neck, take care about these loose frets, and make this wonderful instrument playable again. After inspecting this instrument, I have to consider that actually every fret is loose. And it makes me curious why this well-done bow nut is placed so out of center. And I assume, and I think that's a quite logical theory, that the guy who is making this fret job don't want to remove the glued-in neck, so he tried to compensate the not perfect neck alignment with the position of the knot. This is not the best way to do it, so my plan is to remove the neck, clean everything up, checking the neck angle and making this instrument as original as possible. Have a look at this beautiful flame. This is actually the most flamed vintage neck that I have ever seen. And there's also a crack between the bridge and the tremolo unit. I will check that later. But first of all, let's remove the neck. After removing the pickguard, I discovered this little tiny crack. I can inspect this perfectly when I remove the neck. And for me, all the electric components look original and vintage. Even the soldering points are untouched. This is quite nice. The easiest way to get rid of this loosened frets would be making a new fret job. But this is quite expensive because this neck has a binding. My customer asked me for a low price solution. I have did this once on a Les Paul Custom. If you're interested in that video, feel free to follow the link. And the solution is gluing in every fret, making a perfect fret leveling job and a nice setup, and this instrument is good to go. But first of all, let's try to get this neck out of this body. Wish me luck. after applying pressure, to check out the strength of this glue joint, I have to consider this is not going to be the easy way. I have to take out the big guns. So the idea is to lose the glue at the side of the neck and then apply a lot of pressure, and with a little bit of luck it will just plop off. And this turns out perfectly, and in this moment I'm a really happy craftsman, because I don't have to apply any heat. Applying heat is always a risk damaging an instrument, especially if you're dealing with vintage and old instruments. I always try to avoid applying heat, even if it makes my work easier. And this is white glue. The most carpenters use actually white glue. It's not expensive and very effective. And if you ask yourself, why has this guy glued in the neck into the body? Here is the story. Back in the days when I was a young guy, like 14, 50 years old, I always read magazines about guitars and basses. This was so fascinating for me. And there was, at the end of this magazine, always something like, you can pimp your guitar. And I can remember, actually this is more like 40 years ago, that I read an article how to increase the sustain of your instrument. You hear me laughing today, but back in the days, and this was a serious modification. Keep in mind, and these were experts, and they have the theory that if you glue in a neck from your Stratocaster or Telecaster, or like in this case, your Jazzmaster, you increase the sustain of your instrument. Today, quite funny, but back in the days, and this was a common modification here in Europe. I don't know in the US or in UK. Please let me know if you have any information about that. But back to work, let's remove the glue. I'm totally curious to see the digits on the neck of this guitar. at this point, before I do anything else, I will check the function of the truss rod, because if this is not working good, I wouldn't recommend doing the fret job and doing all the work that is coming up in this video later, because if the truss rod is damaged, you get a major issue. And if you're interested in how to fix this problem, check out, I would call it iconic repair. Check out the link in the right corner. There is where I repair my personal 65 Fender Jaguar. A hell of a repair and very interesting. Feel free to check it out. So at this point I feel resistance, which is fine. Now have an eye on the headstock while I'm turning in the screw. You can see it moving, which is a great sign. From this perspective, even more impressive. And this is a good sign that the truss rod is working perfectly and that there is no truss rod issue, which is amazing. So what you can see here is the original chimp from Fender. They really factory-wise installed chimps in their neck pockets because the neck angle was not always perfect. So after removing the glue from the neck pocket, I would like to make a little of a touch up at the neck pocket, and these are wood structure glues. A lot of people ask me that because I have used them in the repair where I repair a dove binding. This was also a very epic one. If you're interested in that, feel free to follow the link. And these are so-called wood structure glues, very expensive but perfectly working. And by the way, if you are still watching this video and you like what you see, feel free to check out my other videos on my YouTube channel. There is something amazing coming up. The next video will be the first part of my building an electric guitar without electricity project. I've spent about 10 weeks on the road outdoors building a guitar out of one piece of walnut just by hand and no using any electricity. This is coming up next. Feel free to subscribe to my channel. Thanks for your support. Now I'm checking the neck angle for the first time without a neck shimp, and for me, I think my gut feeling says this is manageable to make it work without a chimp. But the next thing will be fixing these loose frets. I'm going to use, and this is very important, very thin super glue. But before I do that, and every time you deal with super glue, this can be very messy. I have to apply some wax on the fretboard so that the super glue can sink into the pores of the rosewood fretboard, and it's easier to remove the excess after I have fixed the frets into the board. I prefer applying the glue into the gap between the fret and the fretboard with a very sharp knife. And if you're wondering, I also angle the neck into my clamp and that it pulls down into the gap actually at the nut slot. So therefore, every time you see me doing this process, I think in total it will be about 4 times. You can see me positioning the neck in a kind of an angle so that the glue can pour in into the slot of the fret. After cleaning up the pots, I can read the digits, and it's quite interesting because the tone pot is dated 65, the one Mac volume pot is dated 64, and the neck digits are dated in 66. This is not unusual, but it's good to know for the owner. At this point, I will take a closer look at the crack on the body top. Therefore, I have to remove the tremolo unit. So this is nothing that you have to worry about. It's just a crack in the surface of the lacquer. We can leave it like that and put on the tremolo unit back again. So after pouring in superglue from the one side of the fret, I decided to make it also from the other side, because these frets are very loose, and to make it really rock solid, I don't want to run the risk that the one fret gets loose while I level the frets. So therefore I will make the whole process just upside down once again. So if you ask yourself, for how long do I have to let the glue dry? Even if it's super glue, I let it dry for hours. The whole repair was stretched over, I think, 3 days. But don't make the mistake and hurry up stuff. If one fret gets loose, you have to do the whole stuff once again. So at this point I have to remove the glue axis of the super glue, and for me the best way to do is with a chisel. You have to be very careful not damaging the fretboard or even the frets. A lot of people use acetone and wipe it off. I think that you weaken the glue point and you can also get a loose fret once again. So for avoiding this, I always prefer working with a chisel. Very time consuming, you have to be very focused. But this is part of being a luthier and being a craftsman. No shortcuts, keep on working. And this looks very nice, and now I will use 4-0 steel wool, very fine steel wool, to remove the excess of the wax from the fretboard. Here I'm checking the neck alignment and the angle of the neck, and it's working without a chimp, which is amazing because a shim is always a sustain killer. And now a lot of people maybe ask me, but you have to level the frets. Yes, I have to do that, but I always level the frets when I have installed the neck in the body on a bolt-on instrument. And if you're asking why, because there are always imperfections, and if you put out the neck and level the frets and install it back, and maybe you just have another momentum on the neck screws, you can create like humps at the end of the neck, and then you get a lot of buzzing. So therefore, if you're leveling the frets on a bolt-on instrument, always install the neck, fix the neck screws, and don't touch it again. That's a luthier tip that can be very useful. I've experienced that for about 13 years being a luthier, and I like to share it because it can cause a lot of problems if you don't do it that way. I will skip the process of leveling the frets. If you are interested in that, feel free to check out the link in the right corner. There you can see me doing a whole fret job, and every information that you can get there can help you out doing a better fret job yourself. And here is something very important if you want to polish up glued in frets. Never ever use power tools for polish them. I know this works very fine and it's easy to do and it's not so time consuming, but I will always prefer polishing them up with hands like I do in this situation. And if you ask why, polishing it with power tools or even with big buffing wheels that I see a lot on these YouTube channels from a lot of colleagues of mine can cause the problem that the fret gets very hot and that the glue get weak. And then you have loosened frets all over the fretboard once again. So if you like to avoid that, do it by hand. Sure, it's more time consuming, but it's always the better way to do it. Thanks a lot to everyone watching this video till the end. And here is another very interesting information. If you're applying oil to a fretboard, never ever let it sit more than 2 or 3 minutes. And if you want to know why, feel free to buy one of my guitar setup courses. You can find more information and a link on my homepage called Patrick Guitars. I explain facts like that, very interesting stuff. It is about 1.5 hours how to maintain and set up an electric guitar. I would say this is very helpful for everyone out there dealing with guitars and basses, and you are able to make your own perfect setup by yourself. I think this is a great benefit, and if you want to support my channel, feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel, feel free to check out my Instagram channel. And the last thing is, and this is really a soul project, I have made this project building an electric guitar without electricity, where I was working and traveling for about 10 weeks. And the first part, the pilot part of this video series, I think they're going to be about 10 or 12 parts, is coming up in the next video. And this is going to be a great adventure. I will take you with me to every single process of building an electric guitar just by hand in the nature without electricity. Enjoy your life, make music, and see you the next time. Thanks for watching.